Welcome everyone. Today's discussion is going to be around stake pool operators and operations. We at WingRiders have been committed to sort of the whole decentralization of Cardano, as we know how important it is really for the stability of the whole chain, and obviously for the growth and attraction of users and increasing overall kind of liquidity into Cardano. So especially really for that reason, we've been committed from the start to have all the ADA in the liquidity pools be staked, but not staked, where we wanted it to go, but to have it democratically voted upon, and where the liquidity providers want their ADA to be staked. So we're really excited today to have here stake pool operators of different sizes to hear what their needs are and their overall views are on decentralization and Cardano, and how we in DeFi can really kind of help them to be successful, as their success is tied to all our successes within the space. So we'd like you obviously to please spread the word that ADA on WingRiders can be voted on where to for it to actually be delegated on, because I think that's really important that the whole Cardano community is aware of this, and the SPOs are free, obviously, to advertise to their users, to the WingRiders users, to have their stake pool as one of the ones it can be delegated to, and that we're all aiming for more decentralization as a whole. So today, my co-host is Paul from Cardano with Paul. We have here several stake pool operators that are here. So we have the Shamrock Pool, Woodland Pools, and ADA for Good. So welcome. Thank you for being here. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Paul to kick off our conversation.
Thanks, Kieran. So looking forward to getting to know all the SPOs here a bit better, and hopefully let people listening understand a bit more about SPOs and what their role is in the system as well. So I suppose we kick it off with everyone gives a quick introduction to themselves. Go with Paddy, he's beside me in the lineup here, to introduce yourself.
Yep, cheers, Paul. Hey, everybody, it's Paddy here from Shamrock Stake Pool. So I've been here a couple of years now, 2.5 roughly. I'm involved in a few different things throughout that time, building on Cardano and Pool Peak mainly, and getting heavily involved within World Mobile at the minute, actually. Setting up an Explorer for that. So yeah, keep my hands busy, but stake pool is the first and foremost main thing that I keep running and keep updated.
Nice one, thanks, Paddy. Next we have Woodland Pools.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name's Guillermo. I run the Woodland Pools channel. It's a Cardano education channel. We try and break down technical topics for people and make them easy to understand. Things like even how to use a DEX like WingRiders, what is Hydra and how will it work, those kinds of things. We try and cover new projects when they come out, do tutorials on how to set up a wallet and delegate and that kind of stuff. I also run the Aspen Stake Pool. I was part of the Plutus Pioneers program, the Atala Prism Pioneers program. I'm a Cardano ambassador, and actually on Monday, I'm really excited to announce I'll be joining Book.io as a full stack engineer. So I'll be joining all those great people building on Cardano. So I'm kind of all over the Cardano ecosystem, involved in it in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of, we try to bring all that together to do the education through the channel. If anybody has any questions with anything, really at any time, hit me up on Twitter or in the comments in the YouTube, and happy to help people out. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, Guillermo. ADA for Good, you're up next.
Hi guys, thank you for having me. My name is Wahid, the pool operator of ADA for Good. I've been with Cardano from the beginning, and stake pool operator for about 2 years. And the thing that's most important for me in Cardano is the community. So mostly I'm involved with anything that has to do with the community. I also started the Small Stake Pool Alliance, the XPO Alliance. I spend a lot of fun times there, and I try to educate our delegators in our Discord. So that's the fun part for me. Also involved in WMT project as well.
Hey, thanks for that, man. Next up, we have Marcus.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Marcus, operator of the Clio One Pool. Also, before the pool operations was active, we did the Clio 1 Explorer, and now after Shelley 2.5 years ago, I created the so-called topology updater to help out a little bit until P2P becomes available. It can be only a question of weeks now. And involved in a lot of other projects, the Koyos API. And since December, I started to help out in the community management team in the Cardano Foundation.
Great, thanks for that. And I think Straight is next up. I think we have everyone then.
Yeah, hi, my name is Chris. I'm operator of Straightpool, STR8. I've been in Cardano since 2017. I'm a German professional for IT and had a lot of fun learning blockchain with Cardano. I was drawn to this protocol through this vision and have followed it ever since. I'm also an ambassador for Cardano, as a moderator, a member of the guild of Cardano. And I see a lot of potential in the project, and my pool is straightforward, simple, and so basically my aim is just to run a reliable pool which is competitive and just ensures decentralized and secure infrastructure. And so my pool has no other real purpose other than this, so this is why I picked the name Straight.
Fantastic. Thank you all for your introductions. And it's very clear that apart from obviously being stakepool operators, we have different motives. We have different types of, sort of other activities, if you like, education and being involved in the community and, even the sort of representation of the community, which is great to see. Let's kick off the first question by really understanding what are SBOs and why are they needed, for the uninitiated, and could we really survive without them? So I'll go to Ada for good to kick-start this question.
Yeah, sure. Well, to keep it simple and bring out the basics of what SPOs do, I would say if there are no SPOs, there will be no blocks, and if there are no blocks, then the chain cannot be used. So in essence, that's what we do. We run servers that make sure that your transactions are stored in the ledger and blocks are minted. That's the essential technical part of it. I would say we do a lot more, but that's I would say top one.
Great. Let's go to Shamrock. What could you add to that or extend on?
Yeah, exactly what he says. But there was one part of that your question I think was an interesting one. Could Cardano live without us? And I think it would be amazing if one day they could live without us, and where everybody is their own SPO. But obviously, at the minute, we have to have SPOs to run the hardware that processes all the transactions. It would be very interesting to have a long-term plan to say we don't need SPOs. Am I trying to put myself out of a role, or you may want to call it job by saying that one? Yeah, but that would be an awesome scenario. Maybe AI or something will take over in the future.
Perfect. Marcus, what could you add to that?
What I can add, so first I agree on everything that was said before. I see very interesting things in the even short future. So in it very soon, the operators, in my opinion, will be some experts when it comes to resources, networkings, and parameters. Not really that parameter that helps them to earn more or gain more, but more how the whole network is set up and how it evolves over time. For now, we have a situation where a Trinity with mainly IOHK, then Cardano Foundation and Emurgo takes some decisions on how the network was designed, how the parameters were set, and how they evolved over time. So, for example, a slowly increasing block size. But in the near future, I foresee and I hope that stakepool operators have a say in this and participate in a distributed governance on this. So, for example, developers will come up with wishes like, we need more space in blocks because we want to do X, Y, and Z of ideas what they have. And then they need to discuss it with someone. And probably that will not be ordinary ADA holders because they have other problems during their life. And instead, stakeholder operators are experts who know how their nodes perform and how they work together and with the peers they are connected to. And they have some metrics and telemetry and see that, okay, it is fine to increase the blocks a little bit or to tune or tweak that parameter, another one, or introduce even a new functionality. That's one of the roles that I see for the SPOs in the near future.
Very interesting take on it. Let's go to Woodlands.
Yeah, sure. I think the guys pretty much covered all the bases there. I think the important thing, though, for people to keep in mind, kind of like I think with I think might have been Straight that the first comment that said about the role of SPOs is even taking a step back and thinking of it in terms of just really any blockchain, right? That the notion of your validators that broadcast and validate transactions, whether it's in proof of work like Bitcoin or in proof of stake like Cardano, that role of the network literally running, of packaging transactions, putting them into blocks and sending them out there. I think sometimes people, we lose sight of that with, there's so many SPOs and promoting and doing different things. But it really is the backbone of how the whole blockchain runs and how these things are done. And so in my mind, even just think of it from as simple as that, that's just kind of what it is and why it's necessary and why I think that, I know we're going to get to some other questions here later, why I think that communication channels that happen between SPOs and IOG and even between each other and sort of building each other up is so important.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And sorry, Chris, I know probably most of the points you wanted to say covered, but can you add anything to that?
Yeah, actually I can. So I've been in the space since the beginning of Cardano in the testnet. So something has changed, and initially we had a parameter called D. So some maybe remember this set the decentration index, and in the beginning stages, most blocks were minted actually by IOG, and only very few pools were allowed to mint blocks. And over time, this parameter was changed, and more blocks were made by community pools. And last September in the Vassal hard fork, so not so long ago, this parameter was completely dropped. So there's no going back anymore. So the SPOs are the livelihood of the blockchain. Without them, the blockchain won't advance. So now there's no going back. That's important, I think, to stress at this time.
Yeah, thanks for all of that. I suppose if we get into a little bit about each of your own pools, like what's the focus or mission, or why you're running a pool in the network. And if we start with Chris there, since you got the last question last there.
Sure, yeah. So I think it's said something already in the beginning. So my focus basically is just to have a reliable pool, which is decentralized and climate neutral. Is important to me, and I try to have competitive fees, so it's interesting for delegators. And I have no other real purpose, so I picked the name straightforward, straight ahead, straight high quality audio, no gimmicks, just works. That's basically my motto. And to have a reliable service with high desirability for delegators, and that's the main purpose of the pool. So I don't want to save the world. I was trying to have a good pool. That's the main purpose.
Yeah, that's very important in the network as well, to have good technical people that are able to, in case we do have issues, that are able to diagnose what the problems are. If good, we'll go to you next.
Exactly.
Yeah, so maybe to add to my introduction, our slogan is to educate, connect, and empower. And as I said, we emphasize on community building. So I try to, educate the Cardano community, the SPO community, and I love to bring people together to create networks of stable operators, connecting projects with delegators, delegators with other delegators. So that's if you look internally, that's what we focus on, to educate and connect. And externally, we all have the same slogan. Since we are a charity pool, we give a portion of our fees to Save the Children, and we give that to a charity that educates children in Rwanda. And we support World Mobile. We also are a World Mobile Air node operator because we like to connect them as well. So it's again the educate, connect, and empower part.
Okay, thanks for that. Guillermo, Woodland Pools, go to you next.
Sure, thanks. And yeah, I think I covered some of it in my intro there, but the main idea, I know there's a lot of different, and Paul, you and I have talked about this before. There's a lot of different Cardano education channels and stake pools that facilitate that. And sort of what we try and do at Woodland Pools is try and break things down and remove sort of the barrier to entry that sometimes people place on themselves by like the intimidation of what blockchain is or what Cardano is or how even like things like hardware wallets work. You know, in my mind, we've all been there, right? And what I always tell people is no matter how much of an expert anyone is, every single one of these different experts, and a lot of them are on this call, all started at the same point of just trying to like learn more and get more confident and grow that way. And so we try and just like break things down both in terms of, you know, projects, like what they do and sort of really what does it come down to at the end of the day, complex topics in the ecosystem. Okay, but what does this really mean and how does it affect the ecosystem and how does it affect me? How can I get involved in it? And so what we try and do is put that information out there, both for project overviews and tutorials and sometimes interviews with projects. And the idea is that we can all sort of learn together, share those learnings, and you know, like I always say in the channel, and help people grow your investment with confidence. That's the main idea, to kind of make it all very approachable and have a slow and steady and deliberate increasing of learning of what you're doing. And that way you can confidently keep moving forward in not just Cardano, but your overall blockchain and cryptocurrency journey.
Yeah, thanks for that. Moving on, Paddy, we haven't went to you yet.
Yeah, you're grand. Do you know, I need to work on, some of these guys have some mission slogans and mission statements. It's amazing. I feel as if I need to work on that. But for me, the main reason why I started in the first place, and I would try and encourage more people to do the same, is the technical investigation and understanding how it all works, and setting up a pool and getting it going was my first reason of doing it. And then once I got up and running, I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll put this on mainnet and get that going. And then it just went on from there. And you know, it's a good thing to explore and investigate, especially if you come from a tech background. And even if you don't, it's not that hard to do. But for me, going forward is, you know, I use a lot of the rewards and stuff that I get to fund developing tools for other people to use. So it's kind of like a circle. You know, I get rewards, I build more things, and hopefully they help more people to learn and more about Cardano. So that's mainly my reason why I got here, and you know, why I stay here.
Okay, cheers. Marcus, did we go to you yet?
Yes. So what should I add? It was already it started already in the IDNs and the incentivized testnet that one of the things I really like and love is so acting as a stake pool operator, but also sharing and learning from others. And this in IDN, back in IDN, we shared some monitoring data, telemetry data, and that allowed us to have a much better understanding. And this is actually something that I, again, now in the mainnet work on for around a year now. It is a monitoring not from the individual nodes, but it is a common view of the block propagation in the network. So the times, how long it takes, and how other nodes see your own relays. And this is not possible for an individual operator to monitor it, like your own hardware and virtual instances and local performance. Instead, this becomes only possible if a certain amount, some 50 or hundreds, or even several hundreds, pool operators start sharing some of the metrics that how they see the blocks from other block producers coming in. And yeah, there is something in place, and it will become a monitoring project under the hood of the Cardano Foundation now, because it is not something that, in my opinion, should run or operated by an individual person like me. Instead, it should become something available and usable for many pool operators, not an obligation. It is opt-in or a free choice to participate. And the benefit will be that, especially now when it comes to P2P, this P2P relays will start choosing and doing decisions from their own. And this brings up then some challenges for small pool operators, large pool operators, and in order to understand what it means and how some pool or some relays see a very lot of connections or only a few, this monitoring project will help them to understand or to have some better insights why this happens and how to solve it.
Amazing answers there. Thank you very much there, all of you. I mean, it's interesting looking at all the different motivations from, I heard education a lot, obviously, and connecting kind of communities. Some like you motivated by kind of greener, I suppose, sort of technology, and then helping charities, for instance, which is amazing. And it was interesting hearing, I think it was you, Shamrock, about technical curiosity that actually pulled you in. But what I get from all of your sort of discussion here is that it's a very sincere and it's a love project really for all of you, and that's really great to see. So can you tell us a little bit about what the contributions of an SPO to the Cardano ecosystem are that get very low, obviously, spotlight? So everyone knows that, yeah, you possibly contributing to the decentralization of the network. What do you think is one thing that doesn't get enough of a highlight from the Cardano community as a stake pool operator? I think we'll start off with Shamrock.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the guys out there who have built absolutely amazing tools, Marcus being one, is a fine example. And I would say there's so many things like that go under the radar and are out there that are used widely by so many people, and that they don't really know who those people are. And I don't think it's been a problem on Cardano, but it definitely can always be enhanced, where the builders don't always get the recognition for doing the work they're doing. And trying to highlight that is a very important thing. You know, if I come across something that I find, whether it's a web page that shows stats or some tool that does calculations, or some things are so basic, you know, even calendars or, you know, NFT calendars, all these different things that people do and create. I just try and share them out to get people to see them, because they're so useful. And I know there's so many of different things, but I always think it's important to highlight the builders. And that's why I think this space is good also. And more of them of the same. And a lot of the guys who do a lot of spaces are bringing these types of people on to highlight the importance of these people. But also Catalyst also gives them an ability to get funding, which I think is also very important. Now, to name any, I think there's so many out there that you could probably highlight, you know. And I won't highlight any at the minute, just to say, not to give any favoritism, but I think a good podium for them is what we all try and do, and try and highlight and share them out as often as we can.
Great, thank you for that. Marcus, would you like to go next?
I already mentioned it before, that I believe, and I strongly believe and hope that in the near future already, stake pool operators can take over much more of the operations. So not only operate their own pools, but also have an important say. 2023 is the year where we start doing baby steps into Voltaire. And one of the first things I expect we will see some community and ecosystem participation is actually stake pool operations and decisions on how to move on with certain decisions and some ideas. The CIP process and all these kind of things, they cover a lot of topics, and not everyone is a developer or a smart contract expert or maybe a financial expert with deep insights in monetary policies or some. The stake pool operators know a lot about networks and resources and performance. And this is very important. This is where I really see what comes up next, and where stake pool operators will be invited to participations. We had examples like the Pioneers programs for the Bluetooth, for Atala, for different things. There was different test nets. For example, there was a P2P test net for, and the developers, the engineers I can confirm that they look permanently out for some vocal ecosystem members, vocal not with strong opinions and big conflicting topics on Twitter, but more like good contributions. And that contribution doesn't mean it must be a blog post, a world blog post or something. It can be just a very good finding, a good summary, or an idea. And this is where I really would motivate. So I want to motivate all the SPOs to take this chance now in this new year here to look into and to become really vocal about ideas they have, and even only if some other pool comes up with an idea, then say, give a clear comment. I agree, I support, I oppose, or something like this.
Fantastic perspective there, Marcus. Thank you for that. Ada, for good?
I think there's not one thing that I would pick out, because I think the power of the SPO community is in its diversity. I mean, we have like 3,000 stake pools, and they have so many different types of talents. Many of them are technically savvy, but we should not forget that the stake pool operators are often in between projects and delegators, and also in contact with IOG and Cardano Foundation. So we do a lot of things, be it technically building a lot of tools. I mean, there have been so many tools built by SPOs that are either being used by delegators or spinned up into projects or whatever. It's very diverse, but also in terms of community building, SPOs are in contact with projects and delegators, so they have big place in helping becoming the ambassador of the Cardano ecosystem. And that's, of course, what we see each day on Twitter. When there is something, all SPOs are out there and trying to bring arguments and defend our chain.
Fantastic. So really connectors of the whole community, moving through with projects, the kind of, if you like, the overriding organizations, the kind of like IOG, etc., that kind of, oversee the network, etc. Very interesting. Straight.
Yeah,
Chris.
many good thanks. Many good points I think already raised. Maybe to add what typical contribution is, but not getting so much spotlight, is just mere performance. I think oftentimes is under the radar. Oftentimes I see in social media stress of just luck of pools. They got a pool, a block, and even though they had a high or low probability, then they celebrate it. But what doesn't happen much is just looking at performance numbers. So, for example, Pool Tool is a tool many know, where you can, as a pool, report your assigned slots before the epoch actually starts, so just in the first few minutes of an epoch. And this way you can actually transparency track if you, as a pool, actually mint the blocks you are supposed to. And this is, I think, a good metric to actually track, to see, because if you have just bad luck, maybe you have 70% of only the blocks assigned as you should, but you mint all of them, then you still have a 100% performance, right? So this is, I think, something of relevancy, which is oftentimes not looked at properly, I think. Other than this, I agree that development work, documentation work typically doesn't get the spotlight it should. One recent example, I remember I'm also a member of the Cardano Guild, and we have a tool, API Koios, for example, which is a query layer for Cardano, and we applied for funds in the last round, and we didn't get any, but Dedos Turbo got some because they had better marketing. And this is a tool, I think, which is very useful. Every SPO who regular calculates leader logs knows that this tool Koios can really help improve resource requirements and stuff. but it's not known enough. So this, I think, generally a problem of marketing, that if it's only relevant to us SPOs, then it's not known enough. And marketing is not good, and it's also sad to see that manipulation is so successful that it gets too much emphasis. And the buildings and important tools don't get the spotlight they should, I think.
I mean, that's a very good point. It's whoever barks the loudest generally gets the bone, but it shouldn't really be like that when you guys are putting in so much effort in terms of developing the kind of network, not just as an SPO, but as a kind of, a central node of Cardano, very much operating in different roles and really trying to help its enhancement. Woodland Pools, what can you add to that?
Yeah, I think all valid points, and I think that one thing too that sometimes people in the community don't realize, they think that from the stake pool side, it's a very unidirectional thing where IOG puts together a new node release and then all the stake pools just upgrade and that's all there is to it. It's kind of waiting for the next one to come in. But I think a big part too that a lot of people in the broader community I think don't necessarily realize is all the other work that is done, not even from IOG, but from the stake pool community itself, both once a release is sort of published out and said this is the one that we should be upgrading to, and then also after that release comes out, the validation of these releases, reporting any issues that come in, creating bug reports. So for example, the issue that we all saw with 134.4, where that transaction came in and a bunch of nodes went down and restarted, IOG was able to turn around and release 135.4. They were able to release 135.5 within like 10 days or so, and a lot of people were sort of crediting IOG for that. But a big part of that was the stake pool community coming together and providing a bunch of information to help them track down where the source of that error was, right? I mean, for example, the actual, like I'm looking at it right now, the issue that was submitted on Cardano Node was submitted by Smogpool, right? And you had comments in there from Andrew Westberg, Pi from Sunday Swap, other people that are on this call were all participating and putting together very low-level logging of exactly what they saw and how it happened, and working with IOG to figure this out. So especially over the past year, it's been really cool to see how it's become a much more back-and-forth conversation as stake pool operators get a lot more involved. And IOG, especially after Adam Deem's catastrophic gate that we all remember, it's become a much more back-and-forth conversation involving stake pool operators in the process of releasing, refining, and fixing these things as they come out. And I think that's a huge deal that a lot of people in the broader community just get basically for free without realizing that all of this is going on in the background. And so, that's what I think one of the most important things that happens aside from the obvious of the validation of blocks.
Thank you very much there. Yeah, thank you for all those interesting sort of answers, and really kind of opens your mind to it's not just about like running a stake pool, but it's a much wider role that clearly a stake pool operator has.
So let's go on to kind of what's required to become an SPO. So we'll put this on the skills or experience needed to become an SPO. If we start out with Marcus there.
So the good news is that compared to the ITN, where it was quite a challenge to keep a node or a pool up and running 24 hours per 7, the Haskell implementation always was and became much better over time. So it is a very stable node that usually, as long as it has enough resources, doesn't crash or create any issues. So that made it very easy to run, or relatively easy to run a pool. Then a lot of tools from the community, like Martin's stake pool scripts or your manager or CN tools came up, and they made it even again easier to set up a pool. The documentation is here, and it is also I would say the best part of the documentation is provided by or contributed by the community, by stake pool operators. That also again made it easy, or relatively easy, to become a stake pool operator. What I would propose is still that there should be some experience or some, a pool operator should be aware that it is a 24/7 service that he is going to provide. And this also includes then set up some own monitoring and alerting in order to become aware. Then stake pool operators also should be prepared and ready to follow the development and updates. To make an example, yesterday we had the Valentine's hard fork, and at the end of the last epoch, we had 7% at pool tool of nodes reporting the now outdated and incompatible version 135.3. So the hard fork now kicked them out. So it wasn't, they are not a problem anymore, but we saw that there are 7% of nodes or node operators who didn't upgrade. So that's not really good, but okay, now they learned it either the hard way or they are out because they don't care about their pool anymore. This is also a question. So as it was already mentioned, 3 weeks ago, there was this anomaly with the nodes crashing. There was a hot fix. And so this also means there was a certain amount of pool operators who didn't even apply that hotfix. And a huge amount or a significant amount of pool operators implementing this hotfix creates the security, because only if a huge majority of the pools implement this fix, it will the fix will become deployed in the network, and it will protect the network then for future such cases. And this, so to summarize it up, a pool operator should have some idea of what it means running services rock around the clock.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, it's definitely over the last year or so, I suppose, definitely since ITN, it's got easier to run them, but there is still some IT experience needed there. Woodland pools, Guillermo, what about you? Anything to add on experience or skill sets needed by SPOs?
Yeah, I think probably another thing too, when looking into it is not just the parts of, so obviously everything just mentioned is sort of a where you want to have as like the minimum sort of starting point. And then additionally, then I think sort of what's implicitly understood there, but just for making it explicit for those that are curious and listening, is then understanding how to do things like server hardening and how to take into account security for your servers. So making sure that your firewall rules are set up, and that even understanding, make sure you deeply understand that the layout of how your block producer sits behind your relays and why and stuff like that. I think those are big things to come up to speed on. I think the important thing, though, to make a distinction, though, when you were saying in your question about, can anybody be a stake pool operator? I think that the answer to that, like the one word answer, is yes, right? With like an asterisk there, and then that asterisk is, then make sure that you're learning these different things that we're talking about. But it's not an insurmountable challenge for somebody who is willing to put in the time to learn the things that they need to learn in terms of the resources that are out there, and how to build the node and that kind of stuff, and then how to take proper security measures and set up monitoring. It can be intimidating, but it is not an endless list, and is not one that somebody who is willing to apply the time to learn it could not learn. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Like it's doable, but you just need to make sure that you put in the time and the homework to get it done.
Okay, thanks. Paddy, we'll go to you next. Same thing, skills or experience needed, and then the guys have covered probably lots of it already, as well as that, maybe some of the challenges as well that an SPO faces.
Yeah, pardon me. And what I would do is I would actually break it down into two components. So anyone can run a stake pool, and I think anyone with the time could learn the processes, the technology, the server setup, the installation to run a stake pool. The hard part of it all is to run a profitable stake pool so that you're not wasting your time and money. And some of the things out there is marketing, and customer reach. I'll call it customers, if that's going to be the new branding going forward, but delegator reach. And and getting people to trust in you to be a stake pool operator whose pool is going to be up and running 24/7. And that side of it is the harder side. So there's a lot of people who are very good at setting up pools, and I've met a load of them over the years, and they've ended up subsequently closing said pools. And as Marcus says, it is easier now to even set one up. So the barrier for entry is a lot lower. And I still recommend to people to go for it, because you never know. People might like you, people might like your brand or your idea or your mission. There's loads of factors that come into play to why people might or might not stake with your stake pool. And there is options out there where you can get bonds on Optum Finance and stuff like that to sort of bootstrap your pool so that you can try and make it look more appealing and get a delegation of a certain amount to get funds coming through. Because there's nothing worse than setting up a stake pool, maybe getting your friends in and a few other people in, and you're sitting at an amount of stake where you're not making any blocks. And it's until you're making blocks is the hardest challenge, I would think. And I don't want to discourage anyone, but it's just a matter of focus on the marketing, then maybe the technical aspect first. And that would be my recommendation. And that also encompasses the challenges that you're requesting there, Paul. So the challenge is getting delegation. There's 3,000 stake pools, I think, since I last looked. It's over that even maybe. And, the competition is fierce to get, everybody wants to saturate their pool and everybody wants to be making blocks. But it's just not possible. So yeah, that would hopefully that covers it.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely highlights the two big aspects of being an SPO, with the technical know-how and the marketing side as well. Chris from Straight Pool, anything else to add to that on either experience needed or issues or challenges of an SPO as well?
Sure. So I think setting up has become much easier, I agree, but keeping it up is, I think, also a challenge for some, as we can see in the different social channels, that things change. They're coming new node versions, people don't upgrade, or specs requirements increase. I remember when we first started with the ITN, we didn't need much resources, and has come to a much bigger resource need with much more memory and so on. So you need to be able to scale up and down as required, find a good balance, which makes sense to you, so are still profitable, I think, is a challenge for some. For me, it's also always an interesting challenge to keep up with metrics and monitoring. Sometimes new metrics come up, like now we can, for example, track if you have used CN tools, if you have consecutive missed blocks. So you need to know that if you have one missed block, for example, as a pool, typically it means that you have a ghosted block, a race condition. So maybe a pool before you just had 1 second before you minted a block, and others didn't see your block built on top of this or something like this. This happens all the time. But if you have 2 of them in a succession, then it's something really bad. Something is wrong, and this is something worthwhile to have an alert on. Something like this. And as I said before, competition is very high. Managing all of these fees and marketing is a challenge for I think for many. For me, it's a bit frustrating sometimes to see that marketing is so much have so much importance that we see sometimes big pools which have a lot of stake minting no blocks for days because they messed something up, but nothing changes, nothing for them. The delegation doesn't react, so they keep delegation as is. People don't see it, and a week later they just pick it up again, and nothing happens for them. So this interesting. Another challenge I think we've seen as SPOs is sometimes irrational behavior from delegators when there is SPOs. So the initial stake pool offerings, like Melt was a good example back then in the day when basically we had this irrational thought that people thought that we might in the future possibly get tokens. We don't know, but they might have a value we assume would be higher than the value we certainly miss on ADA. So they missed out on ADA for 6 months of delegation and allotted less value to this than the value of tokens they might get in the future, which from my point of view is very irrational, but this happened a lot. And another challenge I see is that there's oftentimes a misunderstanding in variable fees. So I see for my pool, I'm running pretty high stake, but I see when I raise my variable fee to like maybe 3%, then delegation will leave because people think, oh, 3% is so high. But actually it isn't, because when you look at the return on staking per year, for example, even if you charge a 5% variable fee and you have a return on staking of 4% per year, if you have a fee of 5%, it just slices off 0.2 points. So you still have 3.8% return on staking per year. But the tools I think we have and wallets and so on do display this not in the best possible way. So people misunderstand this and say, oh, we lose so much rewards. So I think this is one of the reasons it's so challenging to find a good fee, which is in a way that is still profitable for the pools.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, the fee thing is a good thing to highlight as well, in that the variable fee that pools set, sometimes because APY is talked about in terms of percentage, the variable fee isn't taken directly out of that. So if a pool charges 1% and the APY for the year is 3.6, that doesn't mean that your APY comes down to 2.6. And sometimes that gets lost in translation as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So Ada for good. Anything to add on experience needed or skills or challenges you found as an SPO as well?
Yeah, I think everything pretty much was covered by you guys, but maybe to add and maybe summarize the challenges, we should not forget that Cardano is proof of stake. So, I mean, in the proof of work chain, then it's all about having miners and a lot of electricity to mint blocks. But with proof of stake, it's just more complicated. You need to build trust. Although this is a trustless chain, you still need to build trust for delegators to decide to delegate to you. And as the other said, you need to show yourself to be picked in between these 3,000 pools. So I would not say it's marketing. Well, some people call it marketing. I say it's showing you're out there and what your added value is. I mean, if your pool is really good and you have a lot of good stuff, but people don't know you're there, then it's going to be hard for them to find you. So I think that's something that mostly technical SPOs well, maybe might not like to do or have a hard time to do, but which is just very important in a proof of stake environment. And in terms of technology, I think it's setting up a pool is not hard, but as somebody else said, having a pool that is really well operated with backup failover schedule, and with low propagation times and stuff like that. That's less easier.
So many interesting points really to take in, anything from commitment and building trust obviously in the delegators to kind of, even though it's easy to kind of set it up, you still need to have some kind of expertise or develop and learn. I think I got from that as well, to have that commitment really to want to make your network good, and that commitment obviously is a 24 hours 7 days a week, kind of, as Marcus I think alluded to that, and you really need to be on top of things to operate a great pool. I suppose the question is quite a simple one I have, is like, why should sort of anyone sort of delegate their ADA to your particular pool? What would you say that USP is for you that would drive someone to actually delegate their ADA to your pool? And I think we'll start off with Chris this time.
Okay, we'll try to keep it short. So I have 3 core values for my pool: reliability, honesty, and transparency. I think this is important. You can read it up on my web page. I have, I think, a long track record. My pool has so far minted 7,400 blocks about since of the ATN days. I have good saturation of 90%, so I still have 7 million left. So rewards are pretty much guaranteed. I have a low fee. I'm also a chip drop operator pool. So I see some really like to have extra tokens, and I'm cooperating with Drip Drops IO. So when you delegate my pool, you get extra tokens if you like each epoch. Yeah, that's it basically. And I'm also, of course, visible in the community as an ambassador, even though I don't mix it with my pool operations. So because I'm visible, I think this should be one reason, because this is why I wouldn't, of course, try to mess something up. That's basically it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. We go to Vai from Ada for Good.
Yeah, maybe to keep it short and summarize why people might choose Ada for Good pool. I think it's mostly because we are out there all the time. So we just try to be there for our delegators, try to be visible on socials, try to educate stake pool operators, try to educate delegators. One of our main focus is to build a Discord community where people are having fun, can ask questions. So that's the most important thing for me, to build and help people. So that's why I hope people will join our pool. And then, of course, if you like a pool that gives to charity, then we are one pool that does that as well.
Thank you for that. Let's go to Guillermo from Woodland Pools.
Sure, thanks. So I said a little bit about this earlier, but but the idea is the value proposition that we put forward with the channel is especially for new folks, helping them get up and running and how they can set up their first wallet and how they can delegate. Once that's going, okay, well, now I'm set up and where do I go from here? Try and continue providing weekly updates on things going on in the ecosystem and project overviews, and breaking down technical topics that make them easy to understand. Because the idea is that for a lot of us, I think many of us on this call, a big part of our daily routine, and especially what we do in a given week, is dedicated to focusing on Cardano, both the technical sides and things that are going on. But most delegators to any of our pools don't have that kind of time or interest. It's much more of, yeah, I'd like to know what's going on, but I'm not about to be sitting down and actively watching everything that's happening. So we try and make it in such a way that folks can stay up to speed on things that are happening without it taking a huge amount of their time. And obviously everything that's on the channel and all the information we provide is completely free. And we just tell people that, hey, if you're going to delegate to a pool anyway, if you want to help compensate for that time that it takes to stay on top of these things, then delegate to ours. But either way, we just want to help people grow and learn. And yeah, if you want to join us, that's cool. If not, then join one of the other speakers on this pool. Thanks.
So shorten the kind of learning curve for the delegators. That's a very good reason as well. Let's go to Paddy now from Shamrock Pools.
Hiya. Honestly, I don't know why anybody stakes with my pool. I've never asked the question. I should probably ask them and get a varied response. But in terms of me being here, I get a lot of people messaging me for help, and that's the main thing, I guess, that why people do. I think, and if I can help anybody, they can DM me anything, Cardano related, hopefully, and I can help them out. So I'm not really good at sales pitches. I'm going to have to get some training on that, I think.
Excellent, love that.
I've never been a very good salesman.
Well, I think that was a very convincing and sincere, I think, sales pitch that I would delegate to, definitely, for sure. Thank you for that. Marcus, I know we keep losing you probably for technical reasons, but last but not least, what would you say are your USPs so people delegate to?
I also recognized while I listened to other speakers then I am just one of these operators who very often forget about marketing and self-promotion. So that's really a very important thing. On top of course, I will say on top of secure and reliable operations. It is how should I say? It is over time. If one is able to establish one solid pool with some operations, then this is a good thing and a useful thing. That was the other thing that was mentioned before, so that we have 3,000 pools and it is simply not possible to fill them all. This will also not change with parameters or with some crazy magic that will be possible. I see also a little bit of risk that if we create too many small pools because we change K to some extraordinary high value, then we end up in a situation where it does not is not sustainable anymore to spend professional time on it, because this also pairs or comes with the reduced rewards over time. So as the treasury becomes more and more empty, the rewards per epoch will also go back or go down. And here we need to see, or here I see different challenges in the future compared to the first 2 years now with Rush and a lot of things to learn. So I would say the first 2 years was more like sprint races and very high intense activities. And now it becomes more and more a marathon that an operator has to deliver day by day, epoch by epoch.
Fantastic. I mean, what comes through from all your answers is really kind of none of you trying to kind of blow your own horn, and really kind of the commitment to what you're doing is really transparent and comes through.
But going forward, how do you see the role of the SPO going forward when we're talking about sidechains and SPOs potentially running infrastructure there as well as on Cardano? Or where do you see the SPO role going in the future?
Yeah, that's really a cool topic and something that really excites me going forward. I see the ecosystem grow a lot, and I've always been trying to stay in contact with all the projects building our Cardano. That's one of the fun things, I think. And I see just more cooperations with projects happening for SPOs. And as Paul said, I think sidechain is going to really change the world of SPOs, as we can also validate and help sidechains. And also for delegators, I think it's going to be very interesting as sidechains are going to be implemented, and ADA delegates will probably get coins from the sidechains as well, on top of the ADA rewards, which of course are declining. And that could be a very nice addition to the rewards. So yeah, I really look forward to the coming years.
Thanks. Paddy, you're up next.
I think the main trend that we're seeing at the minute is stake pools sort of transitioning into partnerships with a lot of the projects that are building, and it's good to see because there's different avenues for growth there. I'll call it public staking, which is everybody in the world that holds the ADA, but all of these projects, they'll likely hold vast amount of data that will have to be staked somewhere. And I would hope for the long term that they decide to use a lot of the public pools, like a lot of the guys here and others, and that I see that as a big change. I don't expect these guys to transition into a private pool, but you never know. Some of them might get such a good deal that they become the sole staker for projects, and that could happen. But for me, it's showing the growth in Cardano in itself, where we're not solely focused on gathering all those public stakes up, because a lot of people are putting their monies into pools and funding, and all the vast amount of projects out there are just holding so much data. I think that's going to be the difference, and that trend will continue. You can even see that we're legit. Okay, it's with Wave at the minute. Plans to move that to more pools. I don't know what the criteria of that's going to be, but still, you can see where that transition is coming. And yeah, I could talk about sidechains and all that. That's definitely going to be happening. And then you could also bring in the likes of there's stake pool operators also going to be working in the same space as well, mobile Earth node operators. So there probably could be some types of incentives that people like that can provide, if you're doing both with the same person or group or company, whatever way you want to phrase it. So it is changing and it is evolving, and it's great to see. And it is good for people who are looking to stake, because the avenues and the multiple rewards and possibilities are growing.
Great. Guillermo, Woodland Pools, what about you? Where do you see the SPO role going in the future?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that was mentioned there was sidechains, and I think that's part of it. What I think is interesting is looking at it in terms of, if we look at both what is immediately here now and some of the things that have already been proposed. Right now, we've already seen batchers for different dexes, different drop raters and things for drip drops. In some of the stuff that's been announced for Mithril, it's already there's already in-flight testing going on about using testnet stake pools to be Mithril signers and then ideally aggregators of those signatures. Side chains, obviously, being able to do that work. And really, I think of it in terms of sort of one level of abstraction above all of this, where I think what's going to be happening more and more in the future moving forward is that any project, whether it's an individual project trying to launch something, or even IOG, if you consider IOG and their development of Cardano as its own sort of meta type project, I think any project that has a similar need to the most fundamental work of what a stake pool is, which is sort of a distributed layer of work, right? Where you have this notion of actors that are not necessarily trusted because you've inherently selected them or trusted them, but trusted because of like the work they've done and the network has already proven itself. And that then at any point you can obviously like add or remove those workers. The idea of anything that needs this sort of layer of distributed work, instead of then trying to go out and spin it up somewhere else or do it in a proprietary way, where you can basically interface with the stake pool operator and say, hey, I have this work that I need to do. I need it to be done across nodes throughout the whole ecosystem. And, would you be interested in having this be another service that you offer on the nodes that you already have? So sidechains will be one of them, but I think there's going to be a lot of different things that will be able to sort of build on top of this distributed work layer. And I think I'm really excited to see not just the ones that we already know about, but then all the different and interesting things that will take advantage of sort of that layer of work being available.
Yeah, great points. Go to Marcus then.
I agree on many things, on all things that I heard. I want to add that, again, P2P, even if it was said for 2 years now that it is just around the corner, it is really just around the corner. And it will be interesting to see how it affects stake pool operators. I can already say, or to make it short, the incoming connections of the P2P peer test selection will be involved on the stake weight. So we probably will see large pools or multi-pools that don't really contribute on relay resources because they just keep all their pools behind 1 or 2 relays. They will see so many connections that they probably will not be able to answer all these questions, and then they will start losing blocks because they produced it but wasn't able to propagate it in time. On the other side, very small pools will not end up in a risk to not have any incoming connections anymore, but it will be much more fluctuating. And then they can try to improve their set up their relays in order to have to offer blocks faster. So they will maybe need to spend more time on tunings and figuring out how to improve their situation. That will all become very interesting for the stake pool operators. And again, I will say that in 23 and 24, if everything goes as I would expect it, then we will also see a gradually step back, not go away, but step back from IOHK side, because so far, if we are honest, they cared about literally anything. And if this happens, then I see it as a good step, because stepping away carefully means there is open space for others to step in and grow in and take over some responsibility. And this will become really interesting, because this really then means the now prepared floor and framework and protocol becomes really distributed and also decentralized. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcus. And Chris, then, to round up what you see the future of SPOs being.
Sure. Lots of good points already. I agree to all of them, but maybe to add to this, I think not only just what is happening in Cardano is very interesting. Cardano is basically evolving over time. We know it's there's this saying "evolve or die," and I think we live by this. But still, there are things around us, I think, which also influence our role as SPOs. For example, regulation. And when I started all this in 2017 with and looking Cardano, then into ETN and so on, I never expected that I would be a business owner one day. So actually last year, regulation in my country changed, and it was now very clear that running a pool is a business. So now I'm a business owner. So I'm can agree with Charles' assessment that stake pool is a business. At least for Germany, this is the case. So this I didn't expect, but this is now the case. There are other things which I think are very interesting, changing Cardano, like Mithril network coming up, or input endorsers, I think are very interesting. Having more blocks or Babel fees, I think is interesting when we as SPOs can decide what other tokens we accept in exchange for putting them into the blocks in exchange for other tokens, or the Midnight Privacy Chain, or also the whole Voltaire thing. I also think is interesting for us as SPOs to be involved in the member-based organization coming up. So many things are changing, many interesting things, I think.
Okay, thanks for that. And thanks to everyone for your answers. Thanks to WingRiders and Garen for inviting me to co-host. Thanks for everyone for listening, and also the panel of speakers. Really enjoyed getting to know more about your individual pools and thoughts on SPOs as well.
Absolutely, Paul. Thank you very much for co-hosting. As usual, obviously, Paul runs his own SPOs, and thank you to every speaker here. Shamrock Pools, Woodland Pools, Ada for Good, Straight, and Clio. And check out their pools and make sure that you follow and subscribe to what they're doing. They're doing an absolutely amazing job adding decentralization to Cardano and obviously keeping the network secured. We're all grateful for you. Hopefully not so much unsung now, but just heroes. We'd like to say thank you and good night.